Some surprising poll results that actually suggest Trump's in pretty good shape for this election. Plus, Governor Whitmer of Michigan blames Trump for the kidnapping plot against her. Yelp says they're going to call out racism allegations in businesses. A 25th Amendment commission from Nancy Pelosi, and the next debate moderator steps in it. Welcome, friends, to the Buck Sexton Show. Honored to have you here with me. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to keep saying this, keep doing this. I can't help it. Not only is it Friday, which is nice because it means at least there'll be a little bit of a respite from all of the craziness in the news cycle. But, man, we are rocketing along here to Election Day. It is going to be here in the blink of an eye. And I wanted to start, before we get into the usual crushing of the libs that occurs here on the show, I wanted to start with something that we should always have in the back of our minds as we're going forward here. Look, I'm a big believer in persistence, preparation, dedication, endurance, right? Endurance and persistence. If you could give me endurance, persistence, and discipline, if you can give me those three traits, I think life is going to be pretty successful, right? I think those are three of the best ones you can have. When you're younger, I think it's more, creativity and inspiration. And no, you need to endure, and you need to be disciplined. So I think that luck also should always be added in somewhere there. If you can be lucky, it's often better than all of the above. And the same is true in the opposite direction. Sometimes it just goes against you. Donald Trump has done a phenomenal job as president of the United States. He is also doing it at a time, or was doing it until a time, when there was a pandemic that has completely upended the global economy, our social lives, our interactions, our day-to-day. It's a nightmare, okay? And there's nothing that Donald Trump could have done, despite what the media wants people to believe, to stop this pandemic in its tracks. That was never going to happen. This is just a bad thing that has happened to humanity. Now, it's exaggerated by the media in terms of what a risk it is to all of us every day. And they don't look at this like adults. And the Democrats have been trying to leverage this at every stage in every way that they can. But it's clearly a mess. It is clearly a huge drag on everything, on all of us, on the president. And I would just say we should remind ourselves of this, because if it weren't for COVID, I really believe that the president would be sitting around on poll numbers, looking at poll numbers that suggest that he was going to win everything he won in 2016, and then 2 or 3 other states in addition. So just another electoral college landslide. And that's what should have happened. That's what we were heading for when I was talking to you about the Trump administration around this time last year. Many of you will remember I was saying, enjoy this, friends. This is about as good as it gets in America. Booming economy, a president who's slapping down the left-wing media and all their nonsense, no unnecessary wars, no massive American security challenge that has people frightened and worried about their safety every day. And then the Democrats, unfortunately, benefited tremendously from the horrific pandemic that we've gone through. And now they're in a position. This is why I'm very honest about this. They could win, and we all need to understand this. They could win this election. As much of a joke as Joe Biden really is, for those of us who are being honest about it, as absurd as this Harris-Biden ticket may be to those with decent judgment and some memory of what the candidates were saying, what they've done in the past, particularly with Joe Biden, and what a buffoon he is, they can win this thing. Make no mistake about it. And that's why, on the one hand, I want you to make sure that you do everything that you can. People say, what can I do? The same thing, I always say, pass the buck, pass the Trump. And I'll even say for the next couple of weeks, it's more important to pass the Trump than to pass the buck. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. But make sure that you get anybody that you know who's thinking about voting, that you bring them down with you. You offer to, give them a ride. Make sure you encourage friends and family to vote for President Trump. We are in states that are swing states here. This show is heard all across the country. We need you to make sure that you get every vote out there. And that's part one of this. Part two is just understanding that they can win. The Democrats can win this thing. But even with everything the country is going through right now, I think you should at least hear this, because I know the polls show Trump down, and a lot of people are just saying, Buck, I don't believe the polls. Look what they said in 2016. Correct. In 2016, they were generally within the margin of error, but they were all in the margin for Hillary, which seems like it's not a coincidence, does it? And so therefore the perception was all polls have her up, when really all polls should have been inconclusive. If they were all within the margin of error, they don't know. Right? They didn't know. And then the New York Times famously had, 97% on election day that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And then we got to see that slider move down to 70%, 50%. Oh, that was great. I'll never forget when Trump won Florida. I was live on radio at the time. I'll never forget when that happened. And it just hit me. Oh, my gosh, Trump is actually going to win this thing. But even with the pandemic and all of the challenges that have been just falling on top of the heads of the American people for the last 10 months. Because with the pandemic, we kind of knew it was hitting us in January. We started to feel like something was up. And then in February, that's when the real concerns started getting raised. But with all of that, there was this Gallup poll. I think this is pretty remarkable. And it goes to the fundamental question about this election, the one that all the pundits and pollsters, and myself included, everyone's just going to say, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Looking at politics as a function of results, actions that have consequences that affect you, that affect me, that affect the rest of the country. Are you in a better place now than you were 4 years ago? Now, very interesting, because it would be tough to argue that the country is in a better place now than it was, say, a year ago. Obviously, that's not true. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic has really hit us hard and cost a lot of lives. But yet, when people are asked this question, there's clearly a large portion of the American electorate, of the American people, who recognize that for as much as government can be in control of, they do think they are in a better place than they were 4 years ago. So I think that they're compartmentalizing at some level, or they're understanding that COVID has hit the whole world. And there are other things you'd have to look at. We are going to get through this. How is the country doing otherwise? Can you gauge this presidency without allowing it to just be a vote on whether or not you're upset about COVID, because COVID isn't Trump's fault? And the media is trying desperately. The Democrats are trying so hard to push that. It's just not. It's irrational. It's wrong to suggest that this is on the president's shoulders. And that's obviously, and look, there are some things that are much more attributable. Even the economy, for example, the president can play a large role, but there are many factors. And Bush got crushed at the end of his second term, or I should say the Republican Party got crushed, because what really happened was a decades-long policy of housing policies in this country that were in part driven by social justice concerns and then monetized by Wall Street. And then it was a ticking time bomb that went off at the end of the Bush administration. Bad luck. That could have gone off a year later and would have been the start of the Obama administration. And everybody would have been talking about, except for Democrats, of course, what a disaster Obama was for the economy at the very start. Instead, just one of these accidents of history, or one of these sets of circumstance that determines the course of history. Obama gets very lucky in that the economy is in a cyclical recession when he comes into it. And so all he ever has to say is, what was so bad when I started, look at where things are now. And people realize, well, it was a slow recovery. It wasn't a good recovery, but it was enough of a talking point to get him 4 more years, right? Compare your worst month in 20 years of job losses, let's say, to where you are a year or two after that, and surely the number's going to look better. What percentage, though, even though we're in the middle of COVID, even though our economy is in this semi-frozen state, and we have had just weights put on ourselves, on our shoulders, preventing us from being able to go forward economically. It's been such a drag on all of our productivity and prosperity. According to Gallup, which I think is probably the most reputable polling agency there is, or at least the most widely known, Here's Americans' views on whether they're better or worse off than 4 years ago. Would you say you and your family are better off now than you were 4 years ago? Or are you worse off now? Percentage that say they are better off. This is based on registered voters, friends. Registered voters. 56% say that they are better off today than they were 4 years ago. 56%. That's, that would be landslide territory if that's what actually turned out to be the election result, right? Clearly in favor of Trump. What was it in 2012 when Obama was able to win? This is the same Gallup question, the same polling agency. What was it in 2012? December, I should say, of 2012. 45% thought they were better off. 2004, 47%. 1992, 38%. 1984, 44%. 56% of people who are registered voters, according to Gallup, think that they're better off now than they were 4 years ago. That is only something you can explain by saying that 56% of people, one, are personally, materially in better circumstances now, even with a pandemic, and feel better about the trajectory, long-term trajectory of the country, even with a pandemic in the background, than they did 4 years ago. And this is just a way of saying, friends, that there is hope here. Even though the administration was dealt a very crappy hand of cards here with this China virus that has spread all across the country, even with that, it seems there are enough people who understand the difference between bad circumstances and bad leadership. The Democrats are desperately trying to conflate the two, but I think the American people know, or at least enough Americans know, that that's all just a smear. That's all just propaganda. Let's see if we can actually translate this into an election win. Nancy Pelosi doesn't even want to see what the election results are. You know what her plan is? A commission, a 25th Amendment commission, and she wants to start that right now. Oh, let's talk about this. What does the COVID-19 pandemic have to do with you losing your house? Well, the FBI is telling people that cybercrime's up about 75% since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it turns out home title theft is actually a cybercrime. Here's how it works. The bad guys, they find your home's title online, and then they use a quit claim deed to kick you off, put themselves on. Then they take out loans against the equity in your home. You'll find out about this usually when the payments get sent to you in the mail, or perhaps even a foreclosure notice, right? You need to take action today to make sure that your home's title is safe and secure. Create a virtual barrier around your home's title with Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. You can also check online to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it yet. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO, 30 free days of protection. You want to get this done. You want to act on it right away. Protect your most valuable asset, your home, with Home Title Lock.
When we hear people saying I'm young and I'm a perfect specimen, instead of addressing the fact that 50,000 people were infected, reported to be infected yesterday, nearly 1,000 people died. What are we talking about here? Tomorrow, by the way, come here tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the 25th Amendment, but not to take attention away from the subject we have now.
That's Pelosi yesterday. She's not trying to distract people for cheap political reasons with some ploy. No, she's a very serious person. Very serious. Yeah, it's just Trump. We're going to have a Trump talk. 25th Amendment. Unbelievable. But here we are. Nancy Pelosi creating a completely fabricated news cycle around the 25th Amendment. But this just goes to show you the degree of desperation that there is in all of this. This just goes to show you how utterly absurd the Democrats are willing to be, including the Speaker of the House, third in line for the presidency, as shocking and unsettling as that may be. So, yeah, the 25th Amendment. Oh, what was the other thing that Nancy said? I think it was today. She claimed that he is in an altered state. Yes, an altered state. He can't really be trusted to be president right now because he's taking commonly available now medication. Any of us who's under medication of that serious is in an altered state. He has bragged about the medication that he has taken, Pelosi said. And then Congressman Raskin came in. Oh, that guy's gross, too. He said that the amendment was, quote, designed to guarantee the continuing peaceful transfer of power in our country, only for the most extreme situations when you have a president who can't fulfill the duties of office. Well, we have a president who absolutely can fulfill the duties of office. So what are they even talking about? Well, it gives an opportunity, right? It's a way to feed the Trump derangement beast, a way to keep the hashtag resistance narrative going. And that's all they have to do, right? They do this so then even if it's absurd, and this isn't going to do anything. Pelosi says, oh, wait, I want to know. She claims that this has nothing to do with Trump. She's talking about Trump being in an altered state and wants to have a public discussion today about a commission to look into presidential office holders being removed via the 25th Amendment, but it has nothing to do with Trump. That's what she wants. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. That's her claim. I mean, she says this, I guess, knowing that we will respond by saying, so Nancy, how dumb do you think we are? And I think, unfortunately, the answer is very dumb. She thinks the public can be fooled with this. And even if it doesn't sway any voters, it's great. It's just feeding the usual resistance slop to the Trump haters out there. So they love this no matter what. Oh, we can talk about the 25th Amendment again. Ha ha. Trump shouldn't even really be in office because he's actually mentally incapacitated. Ha ha. This is the game that they play. And isn't it so ironic that there's going to be a very real discussion if Biden wins? We all know this. Here's the truth. Democrats won't say it, but I will, obviously. The chances of Joe Biden making it through 8 years of the presidency, being president for 8 years without having a real 25th Amendment issue where the Congress, the cabinet will have to think about removing him and having the vice president take over duties is actually pretty high. This guy's already had 2 strokes and he's 78 years old and he wants to be president. He says now for the next 8 years. So he thinks he's going to get at 84, 85, and there won't be serious health considerations oh, no, of course there will be. So they make jokes about Trump with the 25th Amendment while they're putting forward, and it's all done in a very underhanded and gross way, but while they're putting forward somebody for whom there will be a very serious consideration of the 25th Amendment at some point, most likely. I think that you are probably going to see if Joe Biden wins, you'll probably see Joe Biden step down. Oh, all the people that are saying this is part of a Nancy conspiracy to remove, that's crazy. There's no need for that. This is all about poking Trump. This is trolling. Nancy's trolling Trump. It is personal between these two. Trump doesn't like her and she doesn't like him because Trump knows she's a phony. Ultimately, it's very personal. Trump understands Nancy Pelosi is a Chardonnay socialist. She's a total fraud. He gets it. He knows. So the way that Biden is going to step down is he's going to step down if he wins. Just say that it's health issues. I'd be able to say nothing about it other than, yeah, the guy's old. He's got health issues. Got to have the VP step in. That's just what's going to happen. There's no need for a convoluted conspiracy here. But why are we talking about this right now? Because Nancy just wants to take a little cheap shot at Trump. Better watch out. Trump's going to take some back. Court packing. Oh, gosh. You mean that we still haven't gotten an answer from Biden on whether he would pack the court? Yes. They're doing everything they can to act like this is not a glaring, gaping hole in the Biden, just a straight shooter, just one of the guys, just wants to lead the country as a blue-collar Joe you could have a beer with kind of a guy, right, in his $20,000 a month rental mansion in McLean when he's not at his $4 million beach house in Rehoboth. Or I think it might be 3 million, but just one of the guys. Lunch pail Joe riding the choo-choo every day. It's all such a fraud. You know, that's the one thing I've always liked about Trump is the guy's like, yeah, I'm super rich and I have dated and married many beautiful women and I like lots of gold and gilded stuff and private jets and this is how I roll. And, you know, take it or leave it, but that's what you get. You know, Trump isn't showing up shirt sleeves all rolled up. Hey, Alabama, I want to go shoot some birds out of the sky with you now because I love hunting. You know, I mean, this is what all these politicians do, and it's so annoying. And Biden's just another one of them. Biden is the quintessential swamp creature. The guy's been in politics pretty much longer than anybody else you can think of. He's been running for president really as long as I've been alive, and he lives just outside of D.C. Really, effectively takes the Acela from Delaware every day, which is like an hour and 20. That's it. He's a total swamp creature. Bought and paid for by the credit card companies over many, many years. That's what you're getting. But, Joe Biden, he's on your team. But he also doesn't have to answer any real questions. Joe Biden, for example, when asked about what he would do when asked about what he would do in the debate, he got out of it with Trump because there was a lot of crosstalk. And then you had Harris and Pence was able to push back a little bit and actually try to get some kind of an answer. But Pence wasn't able to get an answer because she won't answer it. So then Biden addresses it again. And if we had a real press corps, this would just be a question. You keep asking this question because it's one that really matters. You ask it until you get an answer. I'm not answering that is not acceptable for something as important as this, for which there is a completely legitimate grounds to ask in the first place. Big issue, and one the Democrats have been openly saying they would take a position on, which is, of course, to pack the court. Here's what you can't make this up. Here's what Joe Biden said. This is the day after the debate when Kamala just non-answered, straight up she pleaded the fifth. Here she is. Here he is, rather. Play one.
They'll know my opinion on court packing when the election is over. Now, look, I know it's a great question, y'all, and I don't blame you for asking it. But the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election begun.
Yeah. You'll know my opinion on court packing when the election is over. This is a little bit of a continuation of Pelosi's. We have to pass the bill to know what's in it, right? We have to pass this to understand what's going to actually happen. The Biden campaign's slogan now is effectively, you could shorten it down or you could summarize it with vote first, think later. Don't ask any questions. Don't worry about this. Don't think that there's some need for you to get to the truth of any of this. Just give us all your faith. Joe, but you can trust Joe. But lunch pail Joe riding choo-choo from Scranton, blue collar Joe, just hanging out with all the lunch pail workers and rolled up sleeves, man. I'm a great guy. I'm friends with everybody. Love everybody. I'm Joe Biden. The whole thing is such a fraud, isn't it? And then there's Kamala Harris, who you really get the sense has never been particularly tested in politics. She's just found the way. It's kind of the Hillary Clinton approach. Runs in New York, not even from New York, runs on her husband's name recognition. Kamala had a very powerful male politician benefactor early in her career. We don't often get to talk about that now. The media would be all over that if she were a Republican, but no, it was a Democrat, so we won't hear about that. But, Hillary runs in New York, not even from New York. And it's all based on name recognition and just kind of skates along. Goes from first lady to senator to secretary of state to would-be president. Why? Well, what great challenge did she overcome? She didn't even really win a particularly important Senate race in that it was going to be against Rudy Giuliani. That would have been a real test because Rudy was in many ways at the height of his powers, but then Rudy got sick with cancer, had to get treated. And he had Rick Lazio step in there, who you've seen probably never, but maybe once or twice on a couple of political talk shows. I think he shows up once in a while on CNN or something. So does Rick Santorum. I feel bad. Rick I don't know. I don't know him. I think I've maybe interviewed him once. I don't even remember if I've interviewed him. So that probably tells you something. And he's over at CNN. And I just want to tell him, man, you don't have to do this. You don't have to be over there. There's a whole big wide world out there. Plenty of ways to make money that don't involve being a punching bag or being a semi-anti-Trumper over at CNN. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. I'm just going to say it. I hope he hears this. Not worth it to do it. Plenty of other places. But look, people got bills to pay. I know. It's an expensive country. So it's going to get a lot more expensive, too, if we continue to spend trillions of dollars. I see now the economy, the U.S. economy, we now are going to have more in debt than we have in annual GDP for the year. That's a benchmark that we really didn't want to cross. That's a threshold that we were hoping to avoid crossing, but sure enough, we're already there. But back to the court packing, because I thought this was noteworthy. Kamala didn't answer the question in the debate because, remember, the truth about Biden and Kamala's intentions, the truth is the enemy of their election prospects, and they know that. So they're going to do whatever they have to do. They're going to convince people in whatever way that they have to that this is fine, that they're non-answers, that they're pretending like they didn't hear the question, whatever it is, voting present. That is sufficient. Here is a montage from back during the campaign, the Democrat primary campaign, of various politicians. You're going to have, what's better? And Kaiser Wilhelm, also known as Warren Wilhelm or Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, Marianne Williamson, I think a couple of others in there. Cory Booker, all being asked about whether they would pack the court. Now, this was pre-RBGC, right? So what's changed now is that they didn't want to sound crazy and tell people when there was no advantage to it that they would pack the court. But notice, one person actually wouldn't even give that assurance during the primary. Play 3.
I don't know that expanding the size of the Supreme Court is the best way to address legitimate concerns we have with its objectivity.
I believe that expanding the size of the Supreme Court is the answer.
I am not. I do not think expanding the Supreme Court makes sense. No.
Where does that stop? Is it a race to the bottom?
I'm not convinced that expanding the size of the Supreme Court is going to fix anything.
Roosevelt tried that in the 1930s, didn't work so well. Are you open to expanding the size of the Supreme Court?
I am open to that discussion.
You'll notice that last voice. I'm open to that discussion. That was Kamala Harris. Friends, she is very transactional in her politics, to put it mildly, and she will do whatever she needs to do to get where she wants to go. Perfect for the Democrats then, because she has, as we know, they're on a superficial level. There's a lot about her that appeals to the Democrat elites and establishment. And she is clearly able to understand how the system works within the Democrat apparatus. I mean, she's risen to being the senator from California. But she even then was saying, I'm open to that conversation. Whatever it takes, folks, whatever needs to happen for Kamala to achieve and accumulate and wield power, that's what she's going to do. You think Joe Biden's going to stop her? You think Blue Collar Joe is going to just sit down and, have a foot long with all the guys by the construction site? Hey, I'm just Joe Biden. I'm just one of the guys. And he's going to say, hold on a second, Kamala, that crazy left-wing stuff, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do radical stuff under my presidency. This is a Joe Biden presidency. Joe Biden was vice president to Barack Obama, who completely steamrolled Republicans without apology, lied about what Republicans' concerns or opposition was rooted in. Just at every opportunity that Obama could, it was in your face, my way or the highway. That's it. Elections have consequences. Take it. Deal with it. That was Obama's philosophy on everything, on health care, on immigration, on the economy, on foreign policy. There was not a single worthy bipartisan effort or moment from the Obama administration, Joe Biden was his VP. I mean, I'm not saying that he was going to be in a position to really stop Obama, but does anyone think that Joe Biden all of a sudden is going to develop a major backbone and push for a more moderate, sane course for the country? No. He's going to do whatever the Democrat donors and the New York Times and Washington Post editorial boards and CNN demand that he do. That's it. Everything else, crazy. Everything else, fantasy land. That's what Joe Biden to Kamala Harris presidency would be like. And that's why I think it's so interesting that even Kamala was like, yeah, court packing, open to that. What do you guys need? What do you want? Huh? Kamala can make it happen. Make Kamala in charge. Give Kamala the power that she wants. She'll deliver for the left. She'll deliver for the progressives. Same thing with Biden. Now, look, if they were running and telling you that, I'd have to say, okay, well, at least they're upfront about it. Bernie Sanders is upfront about it. He's like, I'm a socialist. It's going to be socialism, baby, nonstop, 24/7. Bernie Sanders is all in on it. Kamala and Biden, however, are presenting as something that they're not, just to get to a position where by the time we figure out what it really is, the swindle will be complete and it will be too late to change anything when it comes to the election. And we're not going to run a coup against them. And they know that. We're not going to weaponize the DOJ. We're not going to have a few Trump-supporting FBI agent holdovers who concoct some scheme about how Biden is, being paid off to the tune of millions, billions of dollars from China of assets delivered. No, that's his son. That's not Joe Biden. So we're not going to do that. And they know it. So all they have to do is get this over the finish line. Just shove Biden into the end zone, and then they'll figure out the rest. And we know what the rest is going to be: a return to the Obamaism of I don't care what you think. I'm going to lie about what you actually want, and I'm just going to rub your face in it, and it's going to be my way. And whatever institutions I break down, whatever rules, regulations, principles, whatever ethical constraints that I just tear apart in my way, elections have consequences. That, my friends, will be the Biden-Harris ticket's real mantra.
Thought Kamala did a great job last night. She was really presidential. She kept it on focus. I was really proud of her. I'm looking forward to seeing her. This is one of the finest persons I've ever dealt with. This is a person who was ready on day one to be president of the United States of America.
Kamala, one of the finest people ever, and ready on day one to be president. Joe says this stuff, and I guess he just doesn't realize that we're all going, oh, we know she's ready, Joe. She is ready to take the role. I don't think she would do anything but a pretty awful job in the role, but she's ready for it for sure. For sure. That's true. Meaning that she's preparing. I mean, she's looking at that. I don't think she's looking at the Naval Observatory and the vice president's office all that much. I think she's thinking, what would it be like to sit in the big chair? Joe Biden will be, by the end of his second term, if he were to actually win this thing, 86 years old, friends. He's not going to finish, okay? We all know it. We all know it. But Joe can't say that. He has to pretend otherwise. So we have, on the one hand, we have the media obsessed with finding out, oh, Trump, I heard him cough in an interview. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, he's got COVID. People get sick. That happens. Trump's health overall is very strong, has been very strong this whole presidency. There's never really been a concern, I should say an honest concern, about Trump's physical capacity to do this. And when we're talking about Biden, it's not just people that are asking whether or not he's got early stage dementia or senility. It's also just the physical toll of this. Being able to get up, have the energy, and then the mental acuity to be able to handle the job. But no, don't worry. Pelosi still wants to talk about the 25th Amendment, but it's not about Trump. This is what I think is hilarious. Play 19.
This is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters. But he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents. Throughout America's history, our leaders have created and strengthened guardrails in the Constitution to ensure stability and continuity of government in times of crisis. The 25th Amendment creates a path for preserving stability if a president suffers a crippling physical or mental problem and is, unquote, in the amendment, unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office and transfers his powers.
I mean, what is she babbling on about? We all know what this is. Talking about the 25th Amendment, because that's just now, it's like the hamster hitting the pedal with Democrats to get the little pellet, you know? That, 25th Amendment, Trump, we're going to remove him, 25th Amendment. Oh, it's not about Trump, you mean going forward for 4 more years if he wins. Maybe Nancy should just refer to this as an insurance policy commission, because that's what it sounds like to me. Almost like the FBI's insurance policy of the Crossfire hurricane investigation. But Pelosi wants you to know this is just, she just wants to comfort the people. Play 21.
So that we would like to have it in place, and it could be said for future presidencies. If the president wins this election, yes, it would apply to him. If he doesn't, it'll apply to the next president of the United States. But this isn't about anything to say, we got to do something like this about the election. It's not about the election at all. And I thank the distinguished gentleman from Maryland for this. This has been, we could have done this a while back, but the timing is for now because people want to know. We have to give some comfort to people that there is a way to do this. Very respectful of not making a judgment on the basis of a comment or behavior that we don't like, but based on a medical decision, again, with the full involvement of the Vice President of the United States.
Yeah, all a coincidence, she says.